This video is sponsored by you and by Path to Nowhere. Links to support the channel are in the description. Alright officer, you got me, you have me red-handed. The title is a little clickbait. I know, it's shocking, I never do that. Truthfully, I could make a list of 5-6 stars from launch that still hold up today. It's these goofy goobers. However, Saria no Shiguma are pretty boring to discuss. Both are still relevant for the same reason. They have an extremely simple job and they do it well. To the point Saria still sees use even if she was technically power crept by Shu. So, for the sake of a more interesting video, I will be replacing them with 2 Year 1 operators instead. I feel that's still very much early enough to be in the spirit of this video. So hello there, Arknights' most hated YouTuber here, once again. Okay, hold on, so I click on a video called 5 launch operators that are still meta, and some of them aren't really that meta, and they aren't 5 launch operators. Dude, shut the f*** up! Ifrit, just like in the lore, is a freak of nature, which is a great example of ludonarrative synchronicity, actually. If she is still relevant today, it is not because of her archetype. Corroserum is not one of God's creations, and Aroma can't even one-shot Chapter 3 slugs. Ifrit, to put it simply, excels in the niche of dealing tons of damage. Back on release, there was a common misconception that she was situational due to her range, the implication being that she needed to use all of it or at least most. However, around year 3, people realized that no, actually, she works even with 1 tile. Though, if you can make use of her entire range, that usually wins the stage for you. Skill 3 gives her some utility, shredding the enemy's resistance by 20. This is on top of her talent, shredding a further 44%. This is a good segue to talk about Art's damage. It is not a coincidence that 3 operators in this video are very closely related to it. Art's damage wasn't thought out very well. It's just a simple percentage, meaning that any resistance increase or decrease will be percentage based. In effect, Ifrit skill 3 allows for 20% more damage to be dealt. This is leagues better than defense, which is just simple subtractions, because percentages, and by extension operators based on them, scale with the enemy's status. It doesn't matter if the enemy has 20 or 95 resistance, Ifrit's skill 3 debuff will affect them in the same way, you're dealing 20% more damage. So, any operator that is both baseline good and is closely related to resistance mechanics has a built-in future-proofing safety net by virtue of how damage calculation works. Her talent is why Ifrit skill 2's damage still holds up to modern day standards despite the enemy stats growing, and also why she works with just 1 tile. And this is true for Eyjafjalla skill 2 as well. However, before that, I'm trying to sell you shit. I heard you guys love war criminals. Well, boy howdy, have I got something for you. Path to Nowhere is basically the Suicide Squad of Gacha Tower Defense RTS games. The good Suicide Squad, anyway. Your job is to enlist the help of various war criminals, which all coincidentally happen to be extremely attractive, interrogate them one-on-one, and eventually get them to do your bidding. Right now, there are a lot of goodies and pretty jingling keys for you to indulge in. two new Sinners, Jelena and Pine, the first of which is a crit rate and crit damage support to make all you meta players salivate, 2 free attires, an entire UI overhaul, tons of generous and free-to-play friendly rewards, including but not limited to 55 pulls, and a whole-ass upcoming new chapter, Undercurrents. It's a gritty, dark political drama where you need to somehow navigate the once proud this city without getting shanked in the middle of the street. We also have the very first 4-star attire for Hamel. It features close-up interactions that kind of remind me of that one CG with Nagito in Danganronpa 2, and surround sound effects for headphone users, so you can really feel like you're getting coddled by a pretty anime lady. Please use the download link in the description and pinned comment and the QR code on screen now to play Path to Nowhere today. Now. Immediately. Thank you again to PDN for sponsoring. Anyway, enough about war criminals, let's talk about disabled people instead. Initially, Eyjafjalla was one of the best boss killers in the game with skill 3, being able to shove most enemies directly into the Earth's core. However, two things happened. For one, better boss killers came out, and then enemy stats grew. Man, if only this blind and deaf sheep had an answer to that. Skill 2 is by far Eyja's best skill in the big year 2025. It has great skill rotations, AoE, and, tell me if you're noticing a pattern here, reduces enemy resistance by 25%. The second reason why art's damage is better, that I didn't mention during the Ifrit segment, is that resistance can only go up so much, up to 95. Meanwhile, defense has no limit, it can just keep going higher forever. Actually, put a pin in that will be important later. This means that there is a fixed spectrum of resistance that arts operators work within. For example, Eyja skill 2 will always deal at least good damage. At 95 resistance she removes 23, as the resistance goes down she will debuff less, but you know, the resistance is going down. Since resistance is a percentage in itself, this means that Eyja skill 2's damage is relatively consistent independently of the enemy's stats. The best example are those shield guys in chapter 14, whose gimmick is having outrageous defensive stats. Eyja just f***ing kills them like any normal enemy. Not to mention that this debuff has an uptime of 100% on a single target. It lasts 6 seconds, but the skill has an SP cost of 5. Plus, it actually applies the debuff before dealing damage to the enemy. Going back to Ifrit, this is also one of the many reasons her skill 2 still holds up. But that's enough of beating the shit out of poor reunion bastards that at the end of the day just want rights. What if you're getting your ass beat? Nightingale. God, just look at her, what the fuck? I have an entire video on her dating all the way back to 2 years ago, and honestly nothing changed. If anything, she's better now. And yes, she is still the most underrated 6-star in the game. Even today, I see people call her niche, as if nullifying half of the damage in the game is niche. What I believe is happening here is that people are conflating niche with overkill. For example, in the video by NF Zen, He calls her niche, but then says she works in quote several stages and proceeds to describe overkill. Hey, SUPAH from the future here. In all fairness, I'm making an assumption here. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt on that last line, and assuming he means a general healer is better, because art threats usually aren't high enough to justify the nuclear option, which is Nightingale. Which, to be fair, is true. Nightingale is very often overkill, but that just makes my point. Wishadel is overkill for almost every stage in the game, and the same goes for Shu, but that doesn't make them niche or bad or not meta. Nightingale is an extremely strong and, I'd argue, very versatile operator. There's two main reasons Nightingale is still so good. For one, arts is inherently more dangerous than physical. While every operator has defense, except Crushers, only a few archetypes have resistance. To a lot of operators, arts damage is true damage. Secondly, resistance is percentage based again. Shining can double defense all she wants, a big enough number can simply track through it, but with Nightingale, no matter how high the damage is, you will always be taking 60% less, assuming the operator has 0 resistance and with skill 3. A percentage reduction is way better and generally far more future-proofed compared to defense's subtraction mechanics, beyond the fact that a 60% damage reduction minimum with 25% dodge on top is just really strong on the face of it. And if you can't handle the Nightingale style, aka the high SP cost, you can always use skill 2. It gives people resistance and a shield that slurps up arts damage on a very good skill cycle. But wait, there's more. Nightingale's talent too is great and gives her a separate powerful niche, allowing her to spawn 2 cages, or literal ghosts, or the artifact that will take aggro and soak up damage. This helps against any ranged attack that you want to send somewhere else, global attacks, and mechanics that want units on certain tiles, like the Twilight of Walmond towers. It's just really versatile to have 2 mini gravels on speed dial. Then, on top of all that, add 2 modules that are both equally amazing. One gives her an extra tile of range, increasing her versatility tenfold. It doesn't seem like much, but yes, 1 extra tile is a lot, and the other making her heal 4 operators at once, and giving her an extra mini gravel, which before could only be achieved by retreating and redeploying her. Generally, you use module X for the extra tile, but if you can cram everyone in her normal range, or you need the extra summon, switch to Y. Before we get to the Year 1 operators that sneaked their way onto this list, here's some honorable mentions from launch that aren't 6 stars. Ptilopsis has quite possibly the best buff in the entire game, and she is Nightingale's main competitor. Just by virtue of existing, she gives the entire map a 30% SP regeneration buff, or with her module, a 35% buff in her range. Lappland is still the best silencer in the game. The issue is that you never need silence, because everyone and their dog is immune to it. However, when the developers allow for it, she can solve entire events, so she still warrants a mention. Specter, unfortunately, is still a great lane holder. 15 seconds of immortality are nothing to scoff at. And, unlike her alter, she doesn't require outrageous investment to be good. Warfarin is still one of the best buffers in the game. As showcased in the previous video, she works especially well with ranged units like Ray, but really you can use her on anybody to some extent. With the advent of IS-5, a lot of 4 stars suddenly gained a lot of value. Among the ones from launch, we have Deepcolor, Meteor, Estelle, Haze, Cuora, Perfumer, Mousse, Gummy, Jessica, and arguably Vigna. Anyway, going back to the main list, vanguards are an odd bunch. Their quality can vary a lot. It's not a class like defenders, where generally they're all baseline alright. We can go from absolute meta threat and single mother of 2 autistic children, Ines, to contender for top 10 worst 6 stars in the game, Siege. Among them is a unit whose value goes up the more good vanguards come out. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. When this unit is in the squad, all vanguards gain +6 initial SP. 6 SP doesn't seem like much on paper, but let's run the numbers. On Bagpipe herself, this means 1 charge and a half of skill 2 on the deployment, and 31 initial SP out of 40 for skill 3. On Myrtle, it's 19 SP out of 22, meaning she'll be ready after 1 second and a half at 2 times speed. On Elysium, it's 21 SP out of 26 on skill 1, and the same is true for Saileach, since they literally have the same skill 1, though who the f uses Saileach? And on Ines, her skill 2 is straight up instant. However, if this truly was just a buff to 3 good units and Saileach, Bagpipe wouldn't be here loitering in this list. Let's think about the consequences of this buff. Buffing vanguards like this generates you more DP sooner and in the long run. Generating more DP effectively buffs your entire team, because now you can get people out far sooner. You know, beyond the fact that she's making some of the best units in the game, and Saileach even better. Flagpipe is probably the strongest universal strategy in this game. You shit out so many resources that the enemies can't quite keep up. You're set with a full team 20 seconds into the stage. Bagpipe also happens to have one of the best potentials in the game, or rather the only potential that matters in the game, buffing this talent by 2 SP. This makes Myrtle instant as well, and Elysium almost instant. Though it's kind of a double-edged sword, as it means you will be seeking out 4 more bagpipes, which is a very tall order. Thankfully, it is unnecessary in the vast majority of content. Though Bagpipe isn't here just to sit on her ass and gather dust at the bottom of the screen. If you were to actually deploy her, you'd discover she's quite a good unit of her own merit. Both skill 2 and 3 are great for lane holding, and the latter can even be used to boss kill under certain circumstances. Continuing the pattern of casters being in this video, we have Ceobe. Now, is she meta? No, and unlike everyone else in this list, you can't even really argue for it. However, she still holds up for a very unique reason that I want to discuss. Looking over her kit, we'll notice two main things, her skill 2 being very good, and her module X talent. When she attacks a target, Ceobe will deal additional arts damage equal to 50% up to 75% of that target's defense. The more eagle-eyed among you may have noticed a cheeky little detail. This is uncapped. Remember during the Eya segment when I said that while resistance is capped at 95, defense can just keep going up? Yeah, it means that, technically speaking, Ceobe can deal infinite damage as long as the enemy has infinite defense. Of course, this is unrealistic, it's not going to happen, I hope. However, there are some certain endgame modes where enemy stats are jacked to shit, aren't there? That's right, as Hypergryph's enemy design keeps becoming lazier, Ceobe's stocks will keep rising. What is that? The boss in Design of Strife is nigh immortal? Not if this silly dog has anything to say about it. Oh, that shield guy from chapter 14 whose entire gimmick is having outrageous defensive stats is in CCB3? The horrors persist, but so does Ceobe. This puts the developers in a bit of a rough spot, doesn't it? There's a reason Wishadel is a physical operator. It's so enemies can resist her better in higher end content. You just need to jack up their defense to 8 Magima Gorillions. But then, if you do that, Ceobe, the Eater of Words, will pull up to the stage like a debt collector. While Ceobe isn't meta, she is a unique example of futureproofing, due to what is most likely a developer oversight. Ceobe ends up being incredibly strong in endgame content, and even more so as time progresses. As defense goes up, so will Ceobe stocks. And that's all, max out your Gummy, bye. Hello, thank you for watching. I've had to record this video at least a dozen times for like 2 days troubleshooting the microphone on the new PC. But anyway, thank you to the members and Patreons on screen now, in particular Senshin, Mr. Lair, Good Old Leon, Zilot, Joseph Dia, Bubba Bia, Matthew Nemo, Zephyrinix, The Crazy Lord, Nupo, Lortakio, Nemotic, Nerd Rage, Andre Mulla, Mike Reguera, Kevin McGuire, Jigster, and Chromechan but JJF. That's all. I'm gonna, I don't know, goon to Corin from Zenless, I don't know.